Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got a really good one coming up for you today. Today, we're actually connecting with Jana Waller-Bair. She's the host of Skullbound Chronicles, Skullbound TV, and kind of like the face of Carbon TV altogether. But mostly, she's just a badass hunter. So I want to thank Jana, of course, for coming on the podcast. Couldn't have done it without her, and she has had some amazing stories for us today. But beyond that, guys, please make sure you check out the show notes, give her a follow, check out all the different content she's been putting out for years and years, and then follow us on YouTube and Instagram. We do have a big giveaway coming up. I think this is episode 94. Episode 100, we're going to be giving a bunch of stuff away. So make sure you're following us so you don't miss any of that. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Let Jana tell you some of her stories. All right, Jana, welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to just chat stories for a bit. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. You already gave me one that makes me want to ask, but I don't think it's a hunting story. But you told me your nickname's Jana Banana. If that's hunting related, we got to start right there. If it's not, then we'll just skip that one for now.
It's not necessarily hunting related. It's just because it rhymes. But when I was a kid, my dad nicknamed me Sherman, as in tank, because I was just beefy, chunky little kid that plowed through everything, including getting into the duck blinds and walking the pheasant fields. And he called me Sherman Tank. And it's definitely fitting. It went away for about 20 years and got resurrected. And now my best of friends call me Sherman. So
that's amazing. That's a great name, especially coming from a dad. Maybe I'll start calling my daughter Sherman.
Yeah, you want to skip the
she sounds very similar.
Skip those teenage years just because it gives girls a complex, but then in your 20s or 30s you just own it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, she's 2, so I'm sure she'll have fun with it for now.
Perfect.
But cool. Well, let's kick this thing off right. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks so they know who they're hearing some stories from today?
Sure. I'm Jana now Jana Waller-Bair, because I just got married this year and added Bear. How
Congratulations.
Do you not add the name Bear to your last name? I mean, come on, it's so cool. I hunt bears more than anything else, and so it's not spelled B-E-A-R, but it's B-A-I-R. But it's a cool name. So I'm Jana Waller-Bair.
It is.
I host Skullbound TV and Skullbound Chronicles on Carbon TV. I've just been a hunter my whole life. My dad was smart enough to see in me a love of nature and just let me tag along with him, even when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, sitting in the duck blinds with him or walking the pheasant fields. He was smart enough to sign me up for hunter safety when I was 12. And so really, it's just been a passion of mine and really, encouraged by my father, and picked up a bow my freshman year in college. I actually sat in the tree stands when I was in high school with my high school boyfriend and my dad. But I didn't start hunting until I was a freshman in college. And it's just been a true passion. I've been a big game hunter now 33 years, I think. And grew up in Wisconsin and moved out to Montana about 14 years ago, I believe now, maybe 15. Started my show. It's called Skullbound because I'm a skull artist. I always have to preface that because people think I'm a weirdo out just like searching for skulls, like the Predator or something,
Yeah,
But I'm a
that's a good
skull
reference.
artist.
Okay.
Yeah, that I've tied in my passion for conservation with my artwork. I do a lot of donations and such, but yeah, we started the show back in the day when I moved out to Montana. My ex and I started it because there really weren't any solo female hosted shows. And
Yeah.
when I started it, I really wanted to show that hunters are animal lovers. We really are. And that we give back to wildlife and to the habitats more than any other group in this entire country. So
100%.
that's what I really wanted to show on Skullbound. And literally, I was thinking of airing it probably a few years. The average TV show on network lasts 3 to 4 years. So we pitched it to Sportsman's Channel. They said, hey, let's go. And we spent a year gathering footage, putting a pilot together. And then we aired the next year on Sportsman's. I aired 9 years. And then 6 years ago, I jumped ship to Carbon TV because I feel like everything is going digital. People want their hunting and they really want their hunting and fishing and adventure TV when they want it. Like they want to watch it on break at work, or maybe their spouse is watching something else and they'd rather be on their phone watching something. So I jumped to the digital side of things. The last year I was on the network, I also ran Skullbound Chronicles on Carbon TV, and it did so well the following year I just jumped ship exclusively to Carbon TV. So really, I'm just a passionate hunter, angler, loves to be in the great outdoors, and just kind of like you and I talked about, we're gathering stories along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm new to the Carbon TV family. I started in December, so I'm wrapping
Oh,
up my first quarter here. But I've been paying attention to everybody on there and watching all the different shows, and yours stood out. So I'm super excited that you're here to tell some stories,
oh,
especially
thanks.
because I don't know if you believe this or not, but it is actually hard to get female hunters to come on and tell their stories. I've had almost 100 episodes, and I want to say you're like maybe the fifth female.
Really?
So
Huh.
yeah,
Well, let me
yeah, and
after this, let me give you names of about 20 girls who are just amazing and badasses who would love to come on. So
hell
I'll get you
yeah.
a bunch more guests who will share their stories, no doubt.
Yeah, all the ones I've had have been amazing and badasses. Like Brittany Kitchen. I'm not sure if you're familiar who she is. She lives up in Canada, and she had some stories with wolf hunting. It was like Jurassic Park, where they're like moving through the grass, and you can't
Oh yeah.
see them, but you just see the grass part. Some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So the women hunters are just as badass as all the male hunters that I've had on here. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, thanks so
Um,
much. Yeah, I've got some good stories to share.
Perfect. Okay, well let's kick it off then. Why don't you set the stage and tell us where we are for your first story?
Let's see. What do you want to hear? I mean, I've got scary moments, funny moments, bloopers. I've got like my proudest moments. We've got you choose, and we're gonna
Oh
roll.
my goodness. Well, my personal favorite's always funny. So if you got a funny one off the top of your head, we'll start there.
Okay, funny. Well, they're okay. I'm a goofball at heart. Like, I love to screw around. To me, humor is like a gift from God. One of the top, I love my husband to death, and he is just amazing in so many ways. But probably the best thing about him is he's so funny. Like, he's just
Yeah.
a dry, quick witted sense of humor that I love. Funny. Okay, this is funny, sad, and a blooper all in one. Okay.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
I'm going to I'm going to back up a little bit since you mentioned wolves. I my saddest moment in the field is probably my biggest miss that I think about all the time. It was about, geez, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago now, maybe six. I don't know. I don't know. The older you get, time is just this weird warp of a thing. But so we were deer hunting in Montana. We were just looking for a whitetail, and we weren't seeing any deer. I mean, there should have been, at least does all around. Weren't seeing any deer, and all of a sudden, a pack of wolves howled off, and we thought, oh, no wonder. And we sat down and we're like, let's try to call them in. So we howled a bit back and forth, and it was awesome because on video we're howling, and then the wolf howls back, and after a while he just shut up, and we're like, I thought he was gone.
Yeah.
And my ex, who was my cameraman at the time, he said, let's move down the canyon a little bit, set up again, and just see if we can call him in. We move about 100 yards down into the canyon, and we could hear him in that bottom. And I heard him one more time, and then I thought he quit. And he could hear the wolf howl back really faintly on his mic, because he had the boom mic right on the camera, and he could
Yeah.
hear this wolf and I couldn't. And he thought it sounded like that wolf, this is how smart they are, was deafening his howl to really pinpoint where we were. And sure enough, after sitting there about 10, 15, 20 minutes, I hear out front, out front. And I look and I just see this black like movement behind a downfall. And I seriously thought it was a bit, first off, I never thought it would work. I was,
Yeah.
I literally was doubting the entire time. And
Yeah.
I thought it was a bear because we have tons of bears in that area. And it came out from behind the tree, and I literally was back against a tree, gun on my knee, and I guarantee I didn't even lift the gun up. I was in such awe that I couldn't believe. And here it's about 100 yards away, and he's trotting towards us, this big, beautiful black wolf. And
Wow.
as he's coming closer, I get down behind the scope and I'm looking for a rate because it's filled with trees. And I'm looking, he's kind of trotting towards us and zigzagging a little. And I'm trying to pick a lane where I'm going to have him in my sights. And he comes through. I shoot at about 80 yards. I thought I hit him because it did the tuck of the tail and darted off. Well, as we, looked at the footage, we figured I missed. He was trotting, and as we slowed down the footage and watched it 10,005 times, I know as he's on the trot, he bends down and sniffs the trail, and I think I shot right over the back of his neck. But long
No
story short,
way. Jeez.
we figured I missed. I mean, this all on video. I actually did a full episode about this. All I missed
Okay.
this wolf. The funny part, so mind you, I was in a funk for 3 weeks. I mean, I was just so, because I wanted to tell the story of the wolf. Well, I still told the story of the wolf and interviewed a bunch of wolf related people. And I thought it was an amazing episode. And in the long run, it's probably a good thing I didn't kill the wolf, just because I was a Montana wildlife commissioner. The last thing I needed circulating around was a big grip and grin, with the wolf. So long
Yeah.
story short, everything happens for a reason. But the funny part of the story is I think it was Minneapolis. I was on a red eye. I was on, no one was in the airport. I felt like it was the zombie apocalypse about to happen. There was no one around. And I'm on that really long walkway, that electronic walkway. And I
I
see
know what
this
you
guy
want. Yeah.
coming. Yeah, I see this guy coming towards me, and he's kind of staring at me. And I don't know if he's just looking at me, if he recognizes. It's always kind of embarrassing. Like, maybe he watches the show. It seems like airports, I always run into people who watch the show. And he looked at me and he glared at me. And as we passed each other in like what seemed to be super slow motion, he goes, "I cried with you when you missed the wolf." He didn't say, "Hey, Skullbound, hey, Jana." He just said, that's it. "I cried with you
Yeah.
when you missed the wolf." I still laugh my butt off at that, thinking about that guy. I really wish he'd reach out, because I tell it on podcasts all the time. It's so funny.
That
So
is
there
too
you have it.
funny.
There's my most depressing miss, and
Yeah.
one of the funniest things that came out of it. So
That's funny. I'm sorry that you missed a wolf. I will say it reminded me of this was in the news, like I'm within the last year. I'm not sure exactly, but a lady somewhere shot a wolf, and she was doing a grip and grin, because you said it wouldn't be good for you to have that grip and grin. But her grip and grin, it ended up being like not a wolf. It was
it
like
was a
very
husky.
obviously someone. Yeah, it was a husky. Do you remember that? That's
Oh yeah,
absolutely
that
crazy.
I feel bad for that gal. She was by herself, I think, on a hunt, and she was so
Yeah.
excited, and she just got brutally attacked. I mean, social media, is a bunch of cowboy warriors who've never had their butt in a real saddle. But
Yep.
I feel bad for her. It, it's one of those things where people make mistakes, and no, it seems like no one was giving that poor girl any grace for a while. But yeah, I remember that. Was that in Idaho?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
I don't recall exactly.
yeah.
I mean, we could talk about wolves forever, right? I'm from Colorado, and it's obviously a hot topic here,
Ugh.
but we're gonna go ahead and pivot. I don't know if you've seen this, but there are hunters north of Colorado on the Wyoming border doing predator calls, and they're just
Yep,
shooting every wolf that they can. In
yep.
fact, the one that the governor Jared Polis, the photo of him with this big, beautiful black wolf running away, like the solid black one. I'm pretty sure that wolf is no longer with us.
Yeah.
Someone got a wolf just north of the border.
Well, the
It's
sad part about the whole wolf issue is people do not get it. They don't understand. You've got the anti-hunting, who love the wolf, who love
Mhm.
using the wolf as a propaganda tool. And what people don't understand, how is that a tool? Well, they're hoping to bring the numbers down of elk and deer and other wildlife to where there aren't tags given. And
Yeah.
in their minds, that's a beautiful thing. That means we're not hunting. And then, the nature will just balance itself out. It doesn't work like that. There's a
Yep.
reason Idaho will pay $1,000 for a bounty on a wolf. They
Yeah.
have seen the wolves devastate elk herds and deer populations and such. It's just so sad. Wolves are gorgeous. They're amazing creatures. They just simply need to be managed. I mean, when you think about the let's take the life of an elk. That cow elk is having one, maybe two babies a year, and they may survive. I don't know what, it depends on where you're talking: Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana,
Yeah.
Utah, where you're talking of how that sustainability or that survival rate of that calf is. But it's in often areas not that great because of predators and weather and disease. Here, let's take, then you have a wolf pack. That pack is having multiple puppies, and that
Yep.
pack is having another pack in a year. And all of a sudden, that pack's having one, maybe two packs in a year. And all of a sudden, you've got hundreds of wolves, and it's just that simple. They have to be managed. They're beautiful. They have a
Agreed.
place on the landscape. They need to be managed. And it's just really sad how much they're just not understood by I'd say more so, we hunters tend to get it, but tend to by the
Yeah.
general public. And unfortunately, that general public non-hunting community is now 80 to 90% of our country. And so it's a
Yep.
lot of people who don't understand. They get the little save the wolf postcards in the mail, and they think, "Oh, save the wolf, they're endangered, da 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 da." And they just don't understand the bigger picture.
I agree 100%. I will say the argument, people ask me all the time. I know a lot of non-hunters, and they're like, "So what do you feel about all this?" And I'm like, "Well, my opinion is why do you or your neighbor or these other neighbors think they know more than the thousands of biologists that the state of Colorado employs? I'm like,
Yeah.
ballot box biology, bad news. Bad
It is
news when
absolutely
when
bad. I was
when
a
it's like
Montana
your
wildlife
neighbor.
commissioner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like when
trust
your
me.
neighbor is voting on what you should do with your puppy. Like you have a
Yep.
dog and a cat, and your neighbor is deciding what you should do with them and what food they should get through voting. Like that doesn't make
Yeah,
any sense.
it doesn't.
It's your yeah. So that's where I usually stop it. We're off track though,
No, we're not.
Jana Banana. Let's unless you have
No,
another
we're not.
story.
This is important stuff. I'm telling you, this is. I'm
This
just going to
is
add a tidbit to what you just said because it's so important. We, meaning hunters, have to be aware of who they are putting on those commissions. Now, mind you, it's
mm-hmm.
often governor appointed, and like so. Let's go backwards to that and think in the next election, we better be careful of who is getting into offices because, like,
100%.
I was appointed by Montana's governor, and there are other states that are not hunter friendly. Parts of Colorado, parts of Oregon, parts of Washington. We've got to watch who is getting onto these boards or commissions, as well as even who's hiring, what kind of biologists are out there. So I think
Agreed.
it's important to really get involved with, if you can, your state's wildlife agencies, whether it is, getting their emails that they send out or going to the meetings. All those meetings are open to the public. And I think it's really
Yeah.
important for people to get involved because these issues are going to affect all hunters. Okay, I'll stop preaching. Let's go to stories.
No, that's you're 100% right. I'll say Howl for
Oh, yeah.
Wildlife, right? They're phenomenal.
Howl.org.
I've had them on the podcast. Yeah, howl.org. Make sure you check them out. They make it really easy for you to
Oh,
get
yeah.
involved. You just have to click some buttons. I
Yep.
clicked the button and my phone rang 4 times and I was calling my senators. Like
Yep.
that easy.
Yep.
And they have all of the important issues going on throughout the country.
Yeah. And they're
Colorado,
going to notify you.
CRWM. Yep.
Yeah, they're going to notify you. I don't know about your listeners. I can't keep track of everything that's going on, even in my own home state. Howl.org. And another really good one is Sportsman's Alliance. So I met the
Yep.
guys from Sportsman's Alliance like 14 years ago. They're out of Ohio, but they keep track of everything, all the crazy nonsense going on in the courts. Oh, let's stop all dog hunting. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
let's make it illegal to have coyote contests, all that kind of crap. And Sportsman's Alliance is a great organization that every single member should be a member, as well as Hell.org, Blood Origins. There's so many. I literally, John and I belong to
CRWM for Colorado.
Oh, yep.
Coloradans for
Yep.
Responsible Wildlife Management.
Yep.
Brilliant what Dave's
Yep.
doing over there. So
They are really brilliant. John and I belong to 15 different conservation organizations because we
wow.
believe
Okay.
so strongly in their missions. Some are species specific, some are just hunter related topics. But yeah, you're right. We all need to be a member of those so that we get involved, we get the emails, we know who to contact, and we know how to get off the bleachers and get involved. And it doesn't take a whole
100%.
lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to some stories.
Okay.
We went down the wolf rabbit hole. It always happens. I think I've talked more about wolves than anything else other than stories on this podcast. So, what else do we got? Let's see. You wanted me to pick. We did funny. Let's go with scary one. Scary ones always make my my hair stand on my arms.
Well, I have two kinds of scary ones. I was recently talking about with a friend of mine who runs a great podcast. So scary in terms of grizzly bear scary, I've got a bunch of those. And then I've got scary in terms of I literally thought I was going to die on my mountain goat hunt. So I had a Utah mountain goat tag this year,
Yeah.
and it was one of the most incredible hunts I've ever done. So I never thought, first of all, I'd be mountain goat hunting in the lower 48. I mean, I've looked at a bunch of Alaska trips and they're amazing. Mountain goat and grizzly bear were kind of the two last things on my bucket list. And I sold my house in Montana. I still hit the really good real estate market last year, sold it for above ask. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get one of these conservation tags. I love it
Yeah.
because the money goes back to mountain goats, goes back to Utah. So I, of course, went to a bunch of auctions like I do. My husband's an auctioneer. And I got one of these mountain goat tags. And it was 17 days of hardcore hunting. It was
I
4
bet.
days of scouting. We scouted a bunch in August, September, and then we started the hunt. And mountain goats, first of all, I knew very little about the species, but it was so fun, like just learning about them. You have to watch a mountain goat video before you can get your tag. And it was really good video, actually, just about the differences between nannies and billies and how they act during the rut and how they pee and just really cool stuff that I've never even thought about. But there were a couple days where so first of all, I've never known what a panic attack was. I've never had one, like literally until
Okay.
this hunt.
All
It was
right.
day 14, I think, might have been 13 of the hunt where we got cliffed out. Like I could not go further and I was afraid to go down. We wanted to check. We were on our Onyx and we were looking at the 3D and it just looked so craggy and so goaty and you really couldn't see the backside of this mountain from anywhere close. We wanted to climb up the one side and try to, shimmy our way around to the other side. And I looked at it from the bottom and I thought, oh, no way. And of course, there's John going, we could do this. And so we started climbing up, and it was nothing but boulder fields, which for someone who's really afraid of heights, like I am, even the boulder fields are kind of crazy because you're gripping the rocks as you're climbing up, and, some are loose. And the last thing you want to do is have a boulder fall on your hand and break your hand or twist your ankle and ruin your hunt. So that
Yeah.
was really nerve wracking to go across this big boulder field. And then we're kind of on the face of the mountain. And there weren't any trees except way up higher. And I finally got to the first tree. I literally felt like I was dangling off. Now, mind you, it didn't look like that on the video and it wasn't that, but I felt that way because of my fear of heights.
Okay.
And my chest got all tight and it was super hard to breathe. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm having like, is this what a panic attack was? And it was kind of like my body froze up. And John was literally like, you're okay. Look, watch one step at a time. And it was crazy because your feet would slip and rocks would just plummet down. And it was just super scary for me. And then on the day that I killed my goat, it is crazy where I killed this goat. I have a video on Instagram if anyone wants to go back and look. I think I did the video probably in the month of October or November, but I can't even remember what day I tagged out.
I'll
But
try and find it and put it in the show notes so people can
okay,
just
yeah, it's
click on it.
crazy. So I'm day one. I'm scouting on this very popular ridge people hike up. Another funny part about this hunt is we started at the trailheads. I've never ever in 30 years had a hunt like this where you park your car at the trailhead and you're looking around at all the hikers and they're looking at you like, what in the hell? As I'm strapping on my 28 Nosler with the Nosler suppressor, my gun's like, 4 feet taller than I am on my Eberly stock pack, and they're looking at me like I had some really crazy conversations on this
I
hunt.
bet.
None of them were negative though. All of them,
Well, that's good.
all of the people were just super inquisitive. Like, are you hunting in here? What are you hunting? And then you talk about mountain goats and they're like, oh, there's goats in here, or oh, I saw a goat once, and do you eat goat? And all these great questions. I ran into
Yeah.
a group of women who were on a women's trip, like 6 women who were hiking, and they were staying at Park City, and which is a ritzy ditzy, Utah community.
Yeah.
And they had like 101 questions, and they were taking pictures with me, and like they were so great. It was so much fun. But
That's
anyway,
amazing.
yeah, where I was
I
scouting
bet they
from.
still tell that story of that trip
Oh
where they're
yeah,
like, we were going on this hike and there was this crazy lady running
yeah,
up the mountain with a giant gun.
yeah. I still hear from one of the gals I ran into who's like super supportive. She's like, I thought about getting into hunting just because of organic meat, and she follows me now, and we still talk. It's kind of cool. But no, so we're up there on day one scouting on this big peak that's really popular because it's a beautiful lookout. And you look across to the super steep peak next to that mountain, and I just kind of do a pan and I freeze frame the pan and I show the arrow where I killed this goat. And it's just nuts that we climbed up there. But on day 17 we spotted this goat, and John was like, let's go. I mean, I'm exhausted at this time, and it wasn't consecutive, but we'd go for a couple days, come back. Heath, my main cameraman, my producer, my partner, he came for 6 of those days in the beginning, and it was like, what am I going to do? Hire Heath for 3 months? Like, he's going to be here forever. So he filmed, and everything on that episode that's majestic and like the beautiful cinematography, and that's Heath. And then my poor husband had to film the rest of it, but he did an amazing job. We really, really did. Heath is a magician in post. But anyway,
Yeah.
so we get up to the saddle, and the goat is still way up there, but and I quit. I'm done. I get up to the saddle. We had climbed and climbed and climbed for hours, and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting up there to actually get the goat. Like I could probably shoot, 500 yards and get him, but I don't think I could get over to him. Well, we
Yeah.
get up
And
to
then
where
bring
we're
him
on
back
this.
down, right? Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. We get over to him and we get up to another little saddle across the way. And he's on a ridge that literally slides gradually and then drops off 1,500 vertical feet.
Jesus.
Long story short, I shoot the goat. He drops in his tracks, and we had to like kind of scale this cliff face to get over to him. And once again, 2 more panic attacks occurred. But we did it and it was amazing. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most rewarding, like exhausting / rewarding, amazing hunts of my life, just because
I
of how
bet. Gosh.
challenging it was for someone like me who is literally, especially the older I've gotten, my balance isn't there. I just am freaked out from heights. You should see me when I'm bear hunting with Heath in Idaho. I'm like triple strapped into my tree stand and like I just don't like it anymore. I don't like heights. And that was definitely conquering a fear of mine. On the grizzly bear side of things, yeah,
Well, let me tell you one thing real quick. These are
yeah,
other people's stories, so I won't go too in depth, but I want to make
yeah,
sure the listeners go check out these episodes, or you, of course, if you want to go listen to them. But you told 2 things that reminded me of other goat stories that I've heard on this podcast. Chris Rowe, I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Rowe at all, but he did a goat hunt in Colorado, and he was going across a boulder field, just like you were, where it's just terrifying. He wasn't thinking much about it, but he was jumping from boulder to boulder. And he
okay.
jumps out and lands on a boulder and it shifts under his feet.
Oh,
And he just was like, he immediately looked back at where he came from and was like, oh God, I'm a 1/4 mile in either direction from the end of this boulder field. And he was just like, I'm going to die. Like
yeah,
he like the whole boulder moved feet with him standing on top of it.
yeah.
And he was just like, oh no. And so, yeah, just reminded me of that story. And his story is,
Was
there's a lot
was
more to it, of course.
was he by
Well,
himself?
I believe he might have been, or maybe
Well,
had one friend with him.
that's another thing that crosses in your mind is remember that story of that hiker? Was it Arizona or Utah where had the
Yeah.
boulder shifted and he was
Aaron
hiking in a
something is his
canyon,
name.
but
I can't.
yeah, trapped
Yeah.
his hand and he had to literally cut his hand off to survive. Like, granted, that's crazy, but think that's what goes through your mind in moments like that. I've had that happen where I grab something and it shifts, or it is really terrifying. So I can
Yeah.
completely relate to Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one you mentioned is you shot this thing on this little slope, then a huge drop off. John Lusk was on the podcast recently, and every story just got crazier and crazier. But he was on a nanny hunt in Colorado, and he shoots a nanny, and he gets to it not as dramatic as yours. It was an easier get to, but then he gets there, and he's trying to sort of position the nanny so he could take a photo. And it's kind of a hillside with some, and the nanny starts to slide, and his buddy's just like, let go. And so he's like sliding down this hill to what is a cliff, and he lets go of the nanny. The nanny keeps sliding. He managed to stop himself because he just goes wide and sprawls out and stops himself from sliding. But that nanny off the cliff.
No.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't recall how far it fell. But yeah, he had to go down and like climb to the bottom of the cliff, and they did find her, and she was not in great condition.
No.
It's funny. He's got a good photo of it because he's like, I sent it to my buddy, and my buddy photoshopped it to make make it look a little bit more like an animal that didn't just fall off a cliff. It's crazy stories. But
It is
so the
crazy.
listeners, yeah,
Yeah.
make sure you check out John Lusk and Chris Rowe's episodes. They're absolutely phenomenal. And goat hunts, I'm excited to get one someday, but like I can already feel myself building the courage to like actually go on the hunt because I hear they're insane. So
They are
thank you.
insane. Where and watching them like leap rock to rock is just crazy. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It where my goat was when we finally creep over the saddle in the ridge. We're 200 yards away from him, and in between us is death. Just death.
Yeah.
But where he was, I had to wait like a half hour before he went over, and where I had something below him to catch him. Otherwise, it would have just rolled and rolled and rolled because it was this black pea gravel that was solid as a rock, but it's, like
Yeah.
I couldn't dig my feet in like you can with sand, and it would just
Gotcha.
slide and slide. And I'm, John was right. He's like, you absolutely cannot shoot it there. We have got to wait till it either comes back to some trees or goes back to the boulders where it's going to just, at least catch on something. Like, so I
Yeah.
can relate to that. That's crazy. And the thing is, I'm on day 17. I'm like, I don't want to, number one, destroy my goat. And I don't even know what it looks like because of the way it was positioned. You couldn't really see the bottom from anywhere of what that 1500 vertical looked like down in there.
Ugh.
Would have had to come up from the bottom to get them, and then who knows if I could have,
Yeah.
It's just crazy terrain.
Yeah. Like I said, I think about it and then I go, oh man, we'll worry
Yeah.
about that when I get there, because
Yeah.
it's scary country. And
Yeah.
I hear it's actually the most dangerous type of hunting, where the most hunters like pass away from
Yeah.
falling, right? It's
Either
it's crazy.
sheep or goats. Yeah, it's crazy challenging. In my mind, I was thinking of Cam Haynes' buddy Roy. Roy
Yeah.
slid to his death, and he's an
Yeah.
experienced, amazing hunter. It
Yeah.
can happen. It really can. And so that's in the back of your mind the whole time of like, yeah, you can you feel safe, and this isn't going to happen, but it really can, to the most experienced hunters. Speaking of that's another scary story, the Grizz story. Like, my friend, buddy of mine, Todd Orr, out of Bozeman, Montana. Most people know his story. He was attacked by a sow twice in the same day,
Ugh.
and he lived to tell the story. It is you
You
got to
have to
Todd Orr
introduce me.
Oh, it is. He's been on tons of podcasts, and so he was actually on what's that comedian's show where he interviews people at Tosh Point oh. Remember the
Oh,
show
okay.
Tosh? He
Yeah,
actually
I
was
do.
on Tosh Point oh telling the story, and of course they made fun of the story, but it's actually pretty funny.
And
But
he's got the ball cap on and his ears kind of hanging off. Is
yeah,
that the video?
and
Yes.
he's
Okay, I do know
actually
that one.
he says he's basically just videoing himself when he finally got out to send to his buddies to kind of be like, how was your day? I just got jumped twice by a sow. Like, it isn't. And if it can happen, he's so lucky he lived. And he's so lucky he had bear spray, because she still attacked him even though he sprayed her. But he says it probably slowed her down a little bit, But
Yeah. Jeez.
you have got to hear that story. It's crazy. But if he can get attacked, anybody can, because Todd is a total badass. He's a knife maker. He's killed over 30 bulls with a pistol. He's just a total outdoorsman badass. So
Yeah.
that's always in my mind too. And when I lived in Montana for 14 years, and we used to hunt the Rocky Mountain front all the time, and it's becoming Grizz central. Like,
Really?
we were on a 10-day hunt, and we had already filmed 11 grizzlies grizzlies on this hunt. And those are just the ones we saw, mind you, and filmed. And I ended up arrowing a bull, and I got 2 arrows. The first arrow I struck him, it was like 43, 45 yards. He runs away, and I had unfortunately a couple days before then, I had hit a bull and I lost him. It wasn't the perfect shot. Fortunate for him, it was not a life-threatening arrow. We saw that bull. We saw that bull 2 days later humping a cow. So he was just
having a good time. Just a little sore.
That evening, it was right before dark. These cows and bulls were filtering down through this kind of pinch point. I got an arrow in this bull. He runs down, and he runs kind of behind the hill where I couldn't see him. I ran after him. I knocked another arrow. He kind of got clogged up behind some cows. I heard the thunk. I shot him another arrow. I knew I hit him. I wasn't sure where each arrow was. So we had to back out. I have never been more terrified to go in after my bull that next morning, because I knew I had a bloody bull down, and this was Grizz Central. We walk in at first daylight. I mean, I really kind of wanted to be blowing a blowhorn the whole time. No. But I had my bow with an arrow knocked in one hand with my bear spray in the other. My ex had the camera on one shoulder and the Glock out on the other. And we went in, and luckily we found my bull 100 yards into the Quakies. But I was truly scared to death, because here I'm like, there's blood everywhere, and the blood trail was really good. And thankfully, it was we able to field dress that bull, get him out of there, and never had any problems. But I truly was. I thought we were going to at least have an encounter.
Ugh. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I always thought about, I'm good in Colorado. There's no grizzlies here, but I have heard that they're starting to come over from Wyoming. No one wants to talk about it because no one wants to do the paperwork, right?
Yeah. I'm telling you, they say there's, not grizzlies in the Bitterroot. Well, now we totally know there are. They caught 2, trapped them, and re-released them last year or the year before. There was one on the golf course in Stevensville. And then just on the other side of Missoula, we filmed mating grizzlies one day. The closest we got was 200 yards. There was a nice valley between us. It was intense. We filmed them for 7 hours. Like, all day long, we were black bear hunting. We stopped. We burned through every battery we had. We had the long lens out. It's incredible footage. In fact, it's on Skullbound Chronicles, I think in the first season. You can watch bears mating if you're into that. But it's really cool. Like where that was a once in a lifetime day to watch that
Yeah.
and to hear them fight. And every time they mated, I mean, like dogs, they're kind of locked up for a while. And then when they part, she gets up on her back legs and just beats the crap out of him. And there's the echoing of two bears fighting all around us. It was intense. It was so cool.
Man, bears are crazy. I've never even like thought about watching a video of bears mating. So if it's on there, maybe I'll get into it. It makes me feel a little inappropriate, but
Well, I
but
said
whatever.
on video, I
It's
said,
nature.
we're going to call this clip Fornication at 400 yards. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
It was really a really cool day. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, what else do you got? That was good, scary stories. I never want to run into a grizzly bear. I've had a friend invite me up to wolf and grizzly country to hunt black bears, and I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know if I have the bravery in me.
I tell you, it just changes things a bit, and in
Yeah.
Montana where I love to bear hunt and, I hunt bears more than any other big game species. I've killed 17 bears and I love it. I love the meat. I love, just what to do with the hides and the claws. And I've made pillows and jackets and vests and purses and I run my own baits in Idaho with Heath, my business partner. There's spot and stock in Montana. This year I have Montana, Idaho. I have a Prince of Wales, Alaska black bear tag, and I'm going grizz hunting in June in Alaska.
Wow.
So it's going to be quite a bear-filled spring, but I just love it. I've done every single kind of bear hunting, spot and stock. I did a hound hunt here in Utah. I run over weights in Idaho. I've baited bears in Saskatchewan, Alberta, Alaska. It's just a big, huge passion of mine. And I'll tell you, when you're in Saskatchewan, when we used to go, you're on the ground with them. We sit right on the ground and
Yeah.
it's intense. They don't care about you at all. Versus
Really?
Idaho, for example, there's a lot of pressure where we bear hunt. A lot of other hunters. They will not come, at least for us anyway, won't come near us when we're on the ground. But in Saskatchewan and in Alberta, they don't care. We're there at all. I've shot them at 10 yards. Actually, I shot one at about 7 yards, right walking by me on the ground. That's intense and super fun. I love that.
I bet.
Yeah.
Bear hunting is really high on my bucket list of like hunts that I want to do in my life. I had an Idaho spring bear hunt on the books, and then I was invited to axis deer on Molokai, and I was like, well, that trumps bear this time around.
Yeah, you can always do bear, and there's a lot of great over-the-counter bear hunting in the West. There really is, and it's super fun. All you need is a good weapon and some Onyx map, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. And like Colorado, if you get an elk tag or a mule deer tag, it's basically just an add-on over-the-counter bear tag. So I've had that for the last couple of years, not seen any bears, which is crazy to me. I think I would have run into a few for the hundreds of miles I've put on, but nothing. So I need to read some more books about where to find them, because right now, if I'm in the woods with an elk and a bear tag, I might actually go after the bear more than I want to go after the elk. Especially those fall bears when they're big.
Big, they're mowing down all day long. I feel in the fall you're going to find them a lot more during like the huckleberry season. They're going to be in the berries, choke cherries, snowberries. They're going to be near water as well. They're just gorging up for the winter, at least here. I'm not talking in the Carolinas or wherever else on the East Coast, but you're going to have way more luck in the fall having encounters near food sources for sure. But I've had hunts in Montana where I've had an elk tag, I've had a bear tag, a deer tag. You can have a mountain lion tag in Montana without hounds in the fall. It's crazy. And we've just gone after the species. We've definitely, probably 3 or 4 times in the lifespan of Skullbound, we have diverted an elk hunt to go after bears.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's on my list. In fact, after I killed my elk this last year, I sat there on the carcass being like, a bear might come by. We'll see. We didn't see any bear sign, any scat, nothing the 8 days that we hunted. So we weren't super positive, but we're like, it's a warm, sunny day. Let's see if something showed up. And then, of course, I sit there and I hear a bugle. So I start calling, and I called in a bull to like 50 yards. And I was like, dang it. I just used my tag. I was like, and then I had a buddy with a bull tag. So I was like, I'm just going to lay down, hide, this bull will scoot away, and then I'll bring my buddy in this evening, and I put him on the bull, but they weren't able to close the deal. But
Oh, that's
yeah, I
awesome.
just never had any luck with bears, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
I have been 10 yards from one and then realized how stupid I was to just have my bow and like no pistol or anything. That was scary.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it ran away.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Well, what else do you have for us? What other stories? I don't know if you have a personal favorite. I've given you a couple suggestions. I can keep giving categories, or you can just give us one.
Pick a species. I feel so blessed. I have, first off, I wasn't, and I'm not one of those people who like writes out all my goals and has a huge vision board. And I'm really not
Yeah.
one of those type of people, but I am a definitely like listen to your gut and follow your intuition.
Okay.
I've just been so blessed to have, going into 15 seasons of Skullbound and being in the hunting industry. I work with the greatest partners. I've just been really lucky to go on incredible hunts. One of my most amazing backcountry hunts was Alaska moose. I ended up drawing an incredible tag, and we rented the horses. We rented the Wrangler to take us in on his horses, but it was a DIY hunt, and it was just awesome. I went in with my buddy Ben Woolers and his daughter Taylor, and Taylor was only, I've hunted so much with Taylor, I can't remember how old she was, maybe 13.
Oh,
And we
cool.
both, yeah, it was awesome. And she's a toughie. My God, she's been in her dad's backpack on hunts when she was 2 or 3 years old. So she's been around it all. And we both had moose tags, and we went in the horses, got dropped off. We set up our camp. We had a plan with the Wrangler to sat phone him if we got our bulls down, and, prepare all the meat, hang it high, and he would come in and get us and the meat. And it was just an epic hunt. You can see the highlight of that on season 1 of Skullbound Chronicles. That's what I did the first season of Skullbound Chronicles, where I just put a bunch of my favorite hunts together, kind of boiled them down into shorts,
Yeah.
not the full episode, but that's on there. But yeah, we had just an incredible hunt. I ended up taking just the most gorgeous moose. He was 64.5 inches wide and just beautiful. And it was just a great experience. Taylor was tougher than nails. She got her bull, I think, on the 3rd day. And the funny thing is, the
You
Wrangler.
both drew tags. That's amazing.
Yes, we both had a tag. And well,
Okay.
we put in as a party together. So we
Okay.
both had the tag.
That makes more sense.
And yeah, we the journey out was pretty intense because we sat phoned the Wrangler, and he couldn't come for 3 days. And we had both bulls up hanging high. It was pretty chilly, so we knew the meat was good, and we had it all prepped for him. But we said, you know what? Let's hike out. We could hike out. It was only, I'm totally guesstimating here, but probably 15 miles, 16 miles to the trailhead. But yeah, we did that. We packed up camp, left a couple stashes for the Wrangler to pack up on a pack string, and put whatever we could on our backs. And we hiked out, and we got out we left it right at light, got out just at dark, had some friends pick us up at the trailhead. But that hike out alone was an adventure. It was so cool. But, to be in there and to, try to plan how much food you're going to need. We planned I think for 7 days, 8 days of a hunt. So we had plenty of food, all dry, freeze dried food. We got our water every day from the creek and boiled it or filtered it. And it was just awesome to be in there, and, saw nobody else in there. We didn't see any bear, just a little bit of bear sign, but we never had any bear encounters. But that was an epic adventure. It was super cool.
Yeah. Did you see any like caribou or anything like that? Caribou and moose in Alaska are right there on the top of my list.
Yeah, we never saw any caribou, but we saw a bunch of rams, some dolls that were just up on the opposing hillside that were just so cool. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
we
amazing.
didn't. We saw a ton of moose, which was awesome. And that's the most we saw of anything was moose, which is funny because I don't know about you, but a lot of times you're on a hunt, you see everything but the species that you have a tag for. But other than some sheep, other than some sheep, we really didn't see much more than moose. But it was a great adventure. One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, that's funny that you say you always see what you're not looking for. I've been on an elk hunt in Colorado, hunting over 10,000 feet, and we saw antelope. And we're like, what the hell is that?
Really?
Like, why are there antelope up here? There's a big valley down below, kind of to the east, and we assume they just went up and over to another valley on the west. But we're like, that doesn't make any sense to see antelope at this elevation. And yet we're not finding any elk. It was actually the same year in Colorado. I think it was 2020, where it was like 90 degrees opening day, and then 2 days later it snowed 12 inches. So it's just a
Oh
crazy
yeah.
year in general. So
Yeah, I've had that weather swing a ton. It's crazy. You have to, wherever you're going to be, you got to be prepared because in the West in the
yep.
mountains, yeah, 70-degree swing is a possibility for sure. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and here's something that I learned is always have a brimmed hat. So when it snowed, I went out with a beanie without a brim
Oh yeah.
and no sunscreen. I burned my eyeballs. The
Oh
sun reflecting off the snow and above. I had to take 2 days off because I couldn't open my eyes. It was a
yeah.
crazy hunt.
Yeah.
I felt pretty dumb, but yeah, I just basically just like sat there, put like aloe on my eyelids, and just sat in a dark camper for 2 days, waiting till I could like open my eyes enough to get out and into the woods.
Oh,
So.
that sounds so painful. Yeah.
Yeah, but the best lessons are self-taught, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Very much so. Very much so. And it's nice that you pass along these tidbits to everybody else, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I hope they learn from my mistakes. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
But what else? I know that you have limited time because you have, I think, a lovely dinner party this evening. But
thank you.
I'll listen as long as you have. But if you want to wrap it up now, that's totally fine. Up to you. If you can think of another story to tell, or if you want to tell the
Oh
people where to
no,
find you.
we could tell a couple more stories.
Okay.
One of the interesting things I like to talk about is cool things you find when you're hunting. And my favorites, of course, sheds are always such a treat. I'm a huge
Yeah.
shed hunter. Well, no, I shouldn't say huge. There's next level shed hunters here in Utah that's all the guys care about. But I
Yeah.
love finding sheds. You know, I have found some pretty amazing sheds in my life. The coolest shed related, it's not a shed, but it's kind of shed related find. I drew a bighorn ram tag in Montana a couple of years ago, and it wasn't in the Missouri River breaks where everybody knows the breaks for the rams. It was a unit fairly close to my house in Montana. And that was also a 17-day hunt, which is, you know, you and I are watching each other. It's the mount right behind me. But I found the coolest thing ever on that hunt that I still freak out about. So we were in the middle of the hunt. My husband was able to join me on a bunch of the days, not all of the days, but a bunch of them. And we had scouted this one area. We were driving to another area to scout, and it's along this big lake, and it's a kind of sheer drop off to the lake. But we're driving down the road, and I'm looking up a super steep ridge where the rams and the ewes like to hang out. So I'm literally looking up through the sunroof of my truck, and mind you, I do have to preface by saying I always have John, stop the car, stop the car. I think I see a shed. It's never a shed. Like it never is. I think I see an elk shed or a deer shed, and it's a piece of styrofoam or it's a paper towel or a piece of garbage. It never is. So like John is
Yeah.
so used to me
Here's real
saying,
quick to pause there. My buddies and I, we did that for a while and we stopped. And now it's gotten to the point where when someone sees something, I won't get out of the car because they know it's a rock and they'll just drive off when I get out to go look. And then I'm standing there like, damn it. Like, so, so I have the same luck
yeah.
never finding him when I think and we pull over the car. But now I refuse to get out of the car. I'm like, no,
Well,
you
you're
do it.
after this story here at least has to glass up what you looked at because now John has
Okay.
to stop every single time. So I'm like, back up, back up. I actually thought I saw a moose paddle because I saw a white kind of bowl shape and I thought it was a young moose paddle. So we back up. I throw my binos, stop the car. I throw my binos up. Now, mind you, I just saw this driving, right? I'm moving. So we back up. I stop. I glass. I'm still not sure. So we get out. This is all on the show because Heath's there, my cameraman, and he's filming John and I. So we get out.
Okay.
He films it all. We get out. You know, I'm sure John was secretly hoping it was another piece of styrofoam or something so he could embarrass me. He gets out the spotting scope. He looks at me and he goes, that is 100% a ram skull. I'm like, you're going 100%? Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And it was super steep, like really, really steep ridge. So we all scramble, you know, to like get up there. Heath's got the camera. John throws the scope, locks the truck. We climb up the hill. It's probably, I don't even know, maybe 150, 200 yards up the hill. And we get closer to it and get closer to it. And I'm like, it's a steep, steep hill. And we get to it. I'm just flipping out. It's a ram skull that it just had a little bit of the nose crushed in. I think it was a lion kill, but otherwise it was
Okay.
in beautiful condition. And then, you know, for your listeners who don't know, when a ram dies, it loses its sheaths that go over the skull. They pop off. They don't pop off every year like antelope do, but when
Yeah.
they die, they'll pop off, and the sheaths weren't there.
Is that
So
because of like dehydration of the bones and the bones
yeah,
kind of?
yeah,
Okay.
the everything else inside kind of shrinks and dries out and they pop off. And
Okay.
so we're like, we got to find the sheaths. And so Heath goes left, John goes straight up, I go right. And in 2 seconds, John goes, got one. And as I'm running to him, I find the other, and they are in mint condition, beautiful. I just flipped out. It is the coolest. And the thing is, it's only 1 inch different than the ram I killed. That's what a
No
beautiful big
way.
ram this is. And I have it mounted on underneath the pedestal that my ram I shot is mounted on. Underneath is the skull that I found with a light beaming on it, and it's just cool. But that was truly the coolest thing I ever found. And then I did find a set of moose paddles that I was super excited about one time. And then I found an obsidian spear tip that is
Oh
anywhere from
wow.
4 to 6,000 years old, because I've had 2 arrowhead experts look at it. It's in full beautiful shape, spear tip the size of your palm, well, a little bit smaller than your palm. And it was in the state of Oregon. It was on private land, everybody. So don't, because you cannot pick them up on public land. But I was
Okay.
able
I
to
didn't
keep
know
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of every state has different rulings and different kinds of public land rules. But yeah, most public land you can't pick them up. And that's another thing with deadheads too. Bighorn ram deadheads, you're not allowed to pick them up until 2019. They changed the ruling. If you find a deadhead ram that has died of natural causes, meaning like you didn't hit it with your car or something, I guess.
Yeah.
But you have to turn it within 48 hours. You have to call Fish and Game, and you have to have it plugged. You pay $25 fee, and you have to have it plugged. But yes, they're legal to pick up in Montana. There are other
Huh.
states they're completely illegal to still pick up. Same with arrowheads, depends on the state, but it's the most beautiful. I love arrowhead hunting. I'm just a freak for it. So yeah, it's the most beautiful. I was on an elk hunt in Oregon. We weren't really finding the elk as much as we were finding sheds, like tons of sheds. So I'm like, I'm gonna go check that bluff up there for sheds. I'll be right back. So I take off from my friend Kelly was with me, and Jim and my buddy Scott, who was our guide. And I go up, I check this bluff, and I find this. Just the tip of it was peeking out of the sand. And I bent down to pick it up, and I was like, oh, like I felt like the clouds parted and a godlight came down. Like it was epic.
Yeah.
Because you never find rarely find full obsidian pieces because it's like black glass. It's very, very sharp and breakable. And it
Yeah.
was right on a game trail, which is so weird because I'm sure elk walked over it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was
Huh.
buried for years and worked its way up, but it was sticking out of the sand. I bent down to pick it up. I go running back to the crew, and they're all like looking at me like, where's your shed? Like, what did you find? And I put up my palm and I'm like, look, look, look. And everybody was freaking out for me. It was so exciting. But
That's
I
amazing.
love finding cool stuff on a hunt.
Yeah, I can tell you right now. I think you just got me stranded on the side of a road because I'm gonna start looking again because I've never found anything. But I can imagine the excitement. One time we were hiking, it was a pile of sheds. Obviously, other hunters had picked them up and stashed them.
Oh, yeah.
And in Colorado, you cannot pick them up. Certain times of year. Like
Yeah.
I don't know when. I guess when they fall off until May 1st, I believe, is the day that you can
Yeah,
actually pick them up.
it's basically because of pressuring with everybody hiking around. They're bumping the deer. The deer are really weak, often from a
Yep.
really rough winter. And the concept of having a shed season or dates like that are basically to protect the animals. But some
Yeah.
states have them, some states don't.
Yeah, so I've never found anything other than that pile, but the date I couldn't necessarily grab it. But that being said, I'll start looking again.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna definitely reach out to you if I get left in the woods again. So
Oh, sure, no problem. I'll help you.
perfect. All right. Well, this was fun. Thank you very much. I definitely want to have you back when we have a little bit more time to hear more stories because I know you've got plenty of them. But
Yeah.
why don't we wrap this thing up so that we can make sure that you can get ready for the rest of your day? But tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely.
Whether that I know Carbon TV, obviously, but if there's anywhere else you want to send them to.
Sure. So to watch, I have Skullbound Chronicles, which is my on-demand show where you can pick and choose what you want to watch. That is on Carbon TV and pretty much only Carbon TV. Oh, yeah. So that is Skullbound Chronicles. I have a fast channel, Skullbound TV, that is all of my episodes in the last 14, 15 years circulating. And it's like a regular channel, like Animal Planet, Nat Geo History, where you don't get to pick and choose. You just have to
Yeah.
watch what's on, and there's
Just
commercials in
enjoy.
between. That
Yeah.
fast channel is on 31 different networks right now. The easiest place to watch it is Carbon TV under their live
Okay.
heading. It's also on like Local Now, which a lot of people have on their TVs. You can just plug it. It's free. Carbon TV, for everybody listening, is always free. You are
Yep.
never going to have to pay for Carbon TV. Local Now is another network like Carbon TV that has movies and sports and there's thousands of channels on Local Now. You turn it on and there pops up your local weather, but then you head into channels, and I'm channel 2112 on Local Now, Skullbound TV. And it's really fun. It's just, I always turn on that channel when I'm working out. And it's funny, I have episodes pop up that I totally forgot about. Like, this is, it's crazy, doing this as long as I have. It's fun to watch those old episodes. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I run all my own social media, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are my 3 platforms. And I'm under
Perfect.
either Skullbound Chronicles or Skullbound TV. And it's just me. And so, yep, that's how you find me.
Perfect. And as usual, I'll put links to all of that stuff in the show notes so that if anyone wants to just one click away, there you are. But Jana, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Super.
I really do appreciate it. We scheduled a fair amount in advance, and I've been anticipating this, and you did not disappoint. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's so nice. This was super fun. Thank you so much for having me. There's so many other stories we can talk about, but let's hop on again after I go grizz hunting with John in Alaska in June. I bet you that we'll come out of that one with some good stories.
Done. I'm actually working to get the equipment so I can do these like locally. So I know that Carbon TV has some events. Maybe we'll meet and we'll do a live one.
Oh, that would be awesome. I would love that.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate your time, and have fun at your party tonight.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. All right, guys. That's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank Jana, of course, for coming on the podcast and spending her time with me. I hope her party went really well. I'm sure that it did. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate you guys coming on, listening to all of our stories. If you have some crazy stories, reach out to me. I love having my listeners on to tell their stories. And then, of course, we do have that big giveaway coming for episode 100, so make sure you're following us on Instagram, YouTube, all the different locations, and make sure you give Jana a follow as well. Links to everything will be in the show notes. So thank you, guys. Now get out there and make some stories of your own.